I see that Bill is ensconced in his car in the middle of a rainstorm on the top of a mountain near Angel Fire.
Okay, just Billy, just one more thing. If you would just make me a co-host, make me co-host, not host.
Right.
So I can help.
Done.
And can you remake me a co-host because that went away?
Oh yeah, I did fool with you a little bit, John. So let me find you first. Where are you? Here you are. Okay. So you want me to make you a co-host? Oops. Participants here.
And actually, let me just say one thing to those of you who are I see there's now 3 people recording. 4. Okay, hopefully that'll work.
Okay. All right, are we ready to go with Bill?
Say when. Billy, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
So take it away, Bill, and other people please mute.
Well, I have a poem based on a phone call from Amit. Many of us have gotten those phone calls, and they're delightful. And they come all the way from Delhi, India. This poem is called Blue Mountains Nilagiri. Phone call this morning, sunrise, from Amit, dear friend in New Delhi. That Dantean hellscape that is his hometown now. He told of wise tribesfolk in far south of his vast land who give everything there a personal name. The pebble that stubs many toes, every tree, each child, each tiger. None are without honor, name, and notice. Not one generic, not one overlooked. No one is lost in a sea of numbers, in an ocean of souls. As neighbors die of COVID on his left, on his right, as 100 mourn unwisely gathered nearby for one who is gone, this poet Amit sings softly of a proud tiger's eyes in blue mountains wild to ears of a sad child, to the unanswering sky, to any who dare ask why. Thank you. And now I would love to introduce, and I don't know if these poets are here, but I hope they are. I would love to introduce Jack Hirschman, Poet Laureate Emeritus of San Francisco, author of The Arcanes, proud member of the Revolutionary Poets Brigade. Are you here, Jack?
I haven't
wait.
seen him.
You see him?
I have not seen him, but
All right. We'll wait for Jack. And I would love to introduce Adrian Rice. Are you here, Adrian? Nope. Then we're going to introduce Indran Amirthanayagam. Are you here? 3 strikes and you're out. How about Marcial Delgado?
Yeah, I'm here.
Indran.
Hi.
I'm going to
Hi,
introduce
Bill.
Indran, U.S. diplomat born in Ceylon, now Maryland-based poet, translator, author of Uncivil Wars, The Migrant States, and Blue Window. Indran.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And I'll read in honor of our poet, founder of Delhi poetry, this from the Blue Window. Hopefully sunlight and good health will come. And not for him and for all. Here are some towards the end of the book, a poem called Trip. I'll read the original Spanish and then the English. Viaje. Estamos de viaje, cada uno por su cuenta, tú hacia la montaña, yo al mar, tú con nuevos amigos y con tiempo para reflexionar, yo a ver a mi hija, el fruto del pasado, y a unos amigos todavía en este lado del mar. No sé qué provecho sacar del contraste, montaña, mar, amigos nuevos, una hija alta y bella, casi un adolescente a punto de despegar. ¿A dónde? A una nueva ciudad, al futuro que le espera otra vez en el Padre. A mí no me gusta lo impermanente y darme cuenta del límite de la costa. ¿Qué opciones me quedan? No regresar, no dar algún consejo a este ser vivo al que ayudé a caminar, guardar el silencio cuando cada memoria quiere hablar. In the translation of Jennifer Rathbun. Thank you. Trip. We are on a trip, each one of us on our own. You towards the mountain, I to the sea. You with new friends and time to reflect. I to see my daughter, fruit of the past, and a few friends still on this side of the sea. I don't know how to take advantage of the contrast. Mountain, sea, new friends, a tall and beautiful daughter almost, an adolescent, ready to take off. Where to? A new city, to a future that awaits her again without her father. I don't like the impermanent and realize the limit of the coast. What options are left for me? Not return, not give some advice to this living being whom I helped teach to walk. Keep silent when every memory wants to talk. En pocas palabras todos, es un poema de 3 versos, 3 lines. En pocas palabras todos, nacen, crecen, se enamoran, se decepcionan, sobreviven, se enamoran, sobreviven, se alegran, dejan de crecer, disminuyen, se mueren. In a few words, everyone is born, grows, falls in love, is disillusioned, survives, falls in love, survives, is happy, stops growing, diminishes, dies. And I'll finish with a poem called Illusion, which actually I think I have 4 minutes. I think I have time for one more poem. One Illusion. I'll just read the English. Behind the Repsol station, behind the Repsol station, we walked towards the park where with our hands intertwined, we fell in love. And from that first afternoon, the station became the leg and encounter of a love made of walks towards multiple green spaces in this hazy city, built next to freezing waters and gas stations. A modern love that depended on public and private transport to take us closer to the Alameda, where in another city in America, a man used to walk around with his armadillo. You are the sea, the tree, the stone road, the smell of gasoline. I am the parishioner, the explorer, the representative of distant countries where other loves arise in their own parks, next to waters surrounding everyone, even in the middle of the desert, like that of Paracas. I leave my post, I enter the sea. You leave your coral reefs and your rock formations where boats have sunk to overwhelm the seashore. 35,000 men were erased from the Sri Lankan coast that day of the tsunami. Let me be one more. Thank you. Gracias. your volume, Bill.
Okay, thank you very much, Indran.
No, thank you.
I do not see my brother Manuel Gonzalez here. So, given that he is not here, I'm going to give everything back to you, Billy. There you go.
You're muted, Billy Brown.
Thank you for noticing. And so it's time to introduce our guest of honor, Amit Dahiyabadshah from Delhi, India, a powerful poet, a compassionate human being, a warm and wonderful friend, a brother in poetry to me and to us all. Please welcome Amit Dahiyabadshah. Amit, are you with us?
Very much so. Thank you. Thank
Go right
you.
ahead.
I want to start with a poem which is probably between 5,000 and 8,000 years old, arguably one of the oldest poems ever written. And it is an invocation to the sun as a father, as a god. Goes like this. Om Bhur Bhuva Swaha Tat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimai Yo yo na prachodayat swaha. Om bhur bhuva swaha. Tat saviturvarenyam. Bhargo devasya dhimai. Yo yo na prachodayat swaha. It invokes the sun to bless us with its lumens, so we might tell right from wrong and choose the best way ahead. That is just a rough translation. You know, I've come to realize now at this stage of my life that we are all poets. The difference is some of us know it, most of us just don't know it yet. And for the greater part, and speaking for myself, I see poetry is a craft. The art lies in knowing when to stop. So my first offering is a poem that is arguably the shortest poem in the world, and it's the title is longer than the poem. The title is Terror of the Terrorist. Peace. And since I didn't have anything else to say on that subject, I felt that I should just leave it at that. But every time I think of terror and the time we live in, somehow I'm drawn to the urgent need to write poetry for children. I believe that our defeating COVID depends upon our ability to save our children. That is the most urgent need of the hour. This poem is called The Sparrow. By the kitchen window where it's narrow, there always comes a little sparrow. The sparrow's sweet and very neat. It always looks for things to eat. My mama says it's good to share. So crumbs of food are always there. The sparrow takes them to its nest. it also shares, and that's the best. But this brings me back to the subject of terror, the greatest terror of all. And this poem illustrates to me that um, the space between words in poetry is at least as important as the word itself. And in this poem, I've tried to illustrate it. It's called The Greatest Terror of All. And this is the greatest terror of all. It is the terror of the child who cries out into the dark, "Ma, where are you?" and receives only silence in reply. Children's obsession with food is enshrined in this little poem called Curry. Hurry, mommy, hurry, hurry, I want to taste potato curry. Onion, garlic, pepper, ginger, may I taste it with my finger? No, no, darling, get a spoon. The curry will be ready soon. But you know, coming back to terror, terror doesn't just lie in a combo of planes and buildings, men with beards and strange accents, guns and bombs. It also lies in many other things. For instance, there's terror in a rice tin. And this is the terror of the rice tin. It is the terror of the young woman who married for love, but it did not last 9 months. But the children kept coming for 5 years until the day he finally left. Now there is terror in the 5th week of the month. When she reaches into her rice tin and her cup comes up half empty, and her children's eyes accuse her of marrying for love. Children don't talk about growing up, they talk about growing big. When I grow big, I shall have a bicycle with a shining bell. Behind me a carrier will carry my sister well. In front I'll have a basket to hold all of our things. A bat, a ball, a doll, a transistor, on which Julie Andrews sings. Now that your pullout is happening, you need to know what is going to happen in Kabul. And this, I believe, illustrates that scenario. The orchard in Kabul. Formed an orchard in Kabul. They said it was a lover's rendezvous. The heavens turned red with grief. The people came out of their homes in horror, their palms upturned to the sky. Just 3 words upon their lips, please God, why? Some received a ruby of pomegranate in reply, and others an equal drop of lovers' blood from the sky. There were 2 pomegranate flowers upon the tree. She said, one is you, one is me. We left hers to ripen to fruit upon the tree. I carried mine into the battlefield. You won't believe the harvest it yielded in the ambush against the militants. My rocket-propelled grenade found a school bus of children instead, and it opened like a pomegranate. I shall carry the memory of that day and my flower to my grave. Children love fruit so much, and with my finger and my thumb, I pick up a purple plum. Upon the tree in summer heat, the purple plum turns very sweet. We get it from our friend the fruit fellow. We buy the purple, but not the green and yellow. In my mouth, my tongue and plums say, hello, hello. And this is a tale of the hunting lad gone to war. Interesting little story behind this, poem. I hope you can hear me clearly. Can you hear me clearly? Indran, would you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Great.
Great.
I was in Philadelphia in the early part of this millennium, and going into town Sunday morning to attend a poetry reading. The train was empty. Gentleman got on and turned around in his seat and started staring at me. I ignored him. There was a war going on in Iraq, and it was not a good time to stare back at people. But he kept staring at me, and then I ignored him. He got up and came and sat down next to me. It's hard to ignore someone when they do that. He asked me, would you be from Iraq? And I said, no, I'm from India. And he said, do you know any good prayers? So I thought to myself, this is not going in a good way. And I thought I would assert myself a little. So I stared back at him and I said, yeah, it's a holy place, but not my place. My place is all farmers and soldiers. And I gave him a hard look. And he said, but do you know any good prayers? So I turned to him and I said, excuse me, why are you asking me all these questions? He said, you're wearing a hunting jacket. You know, I received a jacket as a gift. I didn't carry enough warm clothing with me. And this was a flaming orange hunting jacket. I didn't realize it's not suitable for wearing into town on Sunday morning poetry. And he said, you're wearing a hunting jacket. My boy likes to hunt. And I was hoping that you would, if you knew a good prayer, you'd say one for him because he's in Iraq now. Perhaps it might bring him back. And I told him I was a poet from a family of soldiers. I knew what it was like for his boy, and I would write a poem for him. And I was at a poetry reading until he came back. This poem is called Terror of the Hunting Lad Gone to War. And I've dedicated this poem now to my brother poet, Bill Nevins, in honor of his son, Liam, who made the supreme sacrifice in Afghanistan. Terror of the hunting lad gone to war. There is terror when the long flight eastwards ends and a harsh hand of desert heat takes you by the throat, and the ground crew of the plane carefully avoids your eye, and the loadmaster avoids your face. As a cargo of long boxes arrives to take your place for the long haul home, and the wind changes, bringing shining blue flies and a smell you remember from last winter's hunting only too well, when the freezer broke and the venison went throwaway bad. The same stench of rotting venison comes to you from the cargo of long boxes that has taken your place for the long haul home. And the plane leaves the stench behind, gently caressing your face. It says to you, hey, wake up. It's time to play the game, to defeat the stench of rotting venison in a desert that offers no forest, no trees, no deer, only an endless hunting. This is a little poem called An Elegy of Rice and Wheat. India fought for the freedom of a little nation called Bangladesh. And sadly today they blame India for anything that goes wrong in their country. But that's also partly our own fault, because if you're a big brother, then be a good, strong big brother. Don't be wishy-washy. And this poem was written for Bangladesh. You have a beautiful field of rice there, a Bangladeshi. I love how evenly it spreads in every direction, promising rich harvests. except for those patches here and there where the rice grows taller than the rest, almost like wheat. I am of the wheat people, you know. And my brothers too fought for your freedom, and some were left behind. Write me a postcard if ever you find where they fell, or even if you ever learn to tell. Why some patches of your perfectly even rice field grow taller than the rest, almost like wheat. How am I doing on time, Billy? Billy, how am I doing on time?
I think you're doing fine, Amit. Because we missed some other poets, I didn't write down the exact time you started, but I think you have another 5 or 10 minutes. Go ahead.
Great. So this is a prayer for the war against terror. If the concept of war survives this war, if the concept of God survives this war, then hear this prayer, O Lord. Your believers have put women and children to the sword. Must I too put down this pen and pick up a stone upon which to sharpen the steel nib so it cuts through blood and bone and the throat that utters poetry? I made a transition from my village to the city to become a city person in my own lifetime. And this is where the poetry starts getting personal, because a great Indian poet called Nida Fazli, who passed away 2 years ago, said to me that, Amit, if the poetry does not come from your own experience, A, it's not yours, and B, it's not poetry, whatever that means. But I made this transition, and this poem is called Transition, one of my earliest poems. Farewell fields of diamond dew and saffron morning light, and deep wet earth that sucks and holds as frozen birds take flight. Now one farewell to all the love that milks the cows to froth and stirs the blood and strokes the flame, till work and love are brought. A last farewell to the things I knew, and the things I don't know yet. Words fade to nothing as the cows come home and softly dusk sunset. So I made this transition to Delhi, and that's what my next poem is called, Delhi. Where every twisting, turning, winding lane tells growing tales of mystery. Where every twisting, turning, winding lane tells growing tales of mystery, where any piece of fallen stone could be a piece of broken history. Where empires forged in blood and steel have stayed as saffron scent on kitchen air, where the paradox is everywhere. Of an imperial city with the flavors of a village, where a pavement dweller dares to tell you what your life holds, and his caged parrot picks your chances. Where a street urchin steals only the tune from your car stereo and dances, where there is shade enough for shadeful glances, where a true love still waits to be found, with just 4 lines of good poetry. Delhi. You know, when you come from my state, Haryana, which is a very high productive state of farmers and soldiers, one of the strange things you see in Delhi is this phenomenon called begging. Now people asking for money because they're broke. And I attended a art exhibition where there was a picture of 5 Buddhist monks with palms open and, you know, uh, like this ahead of them, uh, walking in a straight line asking for alms. And there was some tourists standing there, and one of them says to the others, this entire fucking culture is based on begging. I used to be an angry young man once, and then I got wise and I learned something. Anger is a black crystalline stuff. And if you're smart, what you do is take your anger home, crush it. If you genuinely feel bad about something, shed a tear or two in it, mix it up into an ink and write a poem and sell the poem. That's what you need to do with anger if you're a poet. And so I wrote this poem called Bhiksha, which explores the concept of asking for alms or begging, especially in Buddhism. A monk, if he's hungry 5 times a day, goes out 5 times begging one handful of food each time in one school of Buddhism. And the reason is that each time you beg, you surrender some ego. And it's only when you've surrendered all your ego that the journey towards being a Buddhist can even begin. So the poem is called Bhiksha, which is the Buddhist word for begging from Sanskrit. I do not become a beggar when I invite you to open the granary of your heart. I do not become a beggar when I invite you to open the granary of your heart. You do not become a giver and I am no taker when a small handful of food changes hands. Instead, when your fingers curl into a small cup of giving and my hand folds into a large bowl of receiving, we form a yantra of sacred sharing, a perfect mudra of two imperfect parts. When a single rice grain performs that long journey between us, it ends the famine between our souls, these empty, aching, and hungry hearts. In Delhi, you will see something else. You will see this beautiful language called Urdu, which, to my mind, along with Spanish and Portuguese and English, one of the greatest languages for poetry, and extremely elegant and flowery and decorous and sweet and courtly. It uses the script from Arabic, but Urdu itself has little to do with Arabic and apart from the script, it has more to do with a blend of Persian and Hindi. And this wonderful script is everywhere on monuments, it's on hoardings, on signs, on books. And so the poem is called The Script of Urdu. Night stars impaled on black buckhorns. Night stars impaled on black buckhorns, the crescent curve of moon, sand dune, the sharpness of acacia thorns, of these the script of Urdu born. Oh, how the Mashrid celebrates every drop of wetness in the ink, long flowing strokes and hesitates to contemplate and pause to think. They say that wisdom is the journey's wage upon the ivory prayer bead trail of vanished herds. They say that wisdom is the journey's wage upon the ivory prayer bead trail of vanished herds. The pen caravans across the desert page, bearing the fruit and shade of chosen words. I've gone through a lot of poetry so far, but with so many beautiful people in the Zoom, I have to do a love poem. There's no way I cannot. I must. And this is called Love on a Lake in Kashmir. What, you ask, as my thirsty mouth draws water at the well of your throat? What, you ask, as my thirsty mouth draws water at the well of your throat? My body joins your body. We turn into a boat, laden deep with soft, sweet words that flutter beneath your skin like startled birds. Their movement rocks our entity. And as our life drifts from verse to verse, you get the rice grains of memory I get the fragments of the universe. And thank you. I want to do a poem for you in my language, Hindi, because you earned the privilege of tasting my tongue with your patience. I do not believe that the words on paper are the poem. I believe that the poem manifests itself between a throat that is trembling with a secret or sacred truth and an ear that is aching with thirst for that truth. The resonance between that ear and throat is the poem, is poetry. And this is my poem to the tiger, a creature that I love dearly. I've been involved with tigers all my life since I was a child. My parents were both freedom fighters, and my friends believe that there should be a law against two freedom fighters marrying each other, because then this is what you get, you know, one maverick poet. The I'll do the poem in Hindi, and then there's an English version for you. सुना है कोई शेर गुजरता है यहाँ से सुना है कोई शेर गुजरता है यहाँ से कि पानी पे हिरन खड़े हैं प्यासे संध्या के अनहद में कोई पत्ता बोला है तो आंखों के तराजू ने हिरनों को तोला है शेर और हिरन की तकदीरें मिली हैं शेर और हिरन की तकदीरें मिली हैं कि दोनों को गुद कर कुदरत ने लिखी हैं संध्या का केसर अमावस्या का काजल शेर की शायरी करे जंगल को पागल हवन कुंड आंखों में मृगनैन पाए दर्पण हवन कुंड आंखों में मृगनैन पाए दर्पण अपनी ही आहुति का ब्रह्मांड में समर्पण हिरण की कुर्बानी पे शेर कुर्बान हिरण की कुर्बानी पे शेर कुर्बान इस भयानक सुंदरता की जय हो भगवान सुना है कोई शेर गुजरता है यहाँ से कि पानी पे हिरण खड़े हैं प्यासे. And finally, because it's International Tigers Day, I'm going to end this with a poem which has pretty well much become a signature poem. It's called The Last Will of the Tiger. The Last Will and Testament of Tiger. It was used by an Indian channel to raise more than $750,000 to help save the tiger. I'm really happy to report to you that since the event started of Save the Tiger telethon on television, the population of tigers in India has doubled. And this poem is called The Last Will and Testament of the Tiger. And I'd like to conclude with this. You have stolen my skin from my entity and removed the roar from my life. O hunter, wield the skinning knife with some grace, a little skill. For I too have hunted and killed many, many, many times, but every kill was a prayer and praise of the Creator. My movements were always quick, clean, merciful. Such is the way of true believers. But do you now, hunter, slice, slash, and cut clean? I pray only that you leave no part of me behind to be eaten by the jackal and the hyena. For I have ruled this forest on behalf of the Creator himself, and there is no honor in a king becoming carrion. So take the sacred color from my coat, send it back to the maker of sunsets. So take the sacred color from my coat, send it back to the maker of sunsets. Take the darkness of my stripe and return it to the shadow and the undergrowth, for that is where it was obtained. Take the white of the fur of my belly and send it back to a new ice age that it returned to avenge me. Send my roar back to my maker, that he fill the heavens with my rage at this shabby end for a true king, ordained by God himself. Send my claws to the young of the rich and the highborn to save them from their own nightmares. Send my teeth to Tibet that their aspirations for freedom find new teeth. Send my bones to China that they find a cure for the fear that builds such great walls. Send my fat to Singapore that they learn to make a balm that is mine, not merely a name. Send my shit to the alchemists, for that is the only substance they have not yet tried in their efforts to invent gold. Give my entrails to whoever shall have them, but hang on to my eyes, you puny murderer, that your tribe might know that you did not fell a creature beneath you, that I looked you in the eye and did not flinch when you shot me. Instead, I am turned away, released from the cancer of your footprint.
Let's all unmute and applaud Amit.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Amit.
thank you, Amit. Wow.
Thank you, Amit.
So let's take the next 5 to 10 minutes just chatting with Amit. You can ask him questions. You can say what you like to say.
We're used to getting small doses of Amit at open mics, but wow. Yeah.
Right.
Amit, I'm a little cloudy. Now, your parents were from exactly where?
My mother's family were refugees from Pakistan when Pakistan was created. My father's family are from a state called Haryana, which is on 3 sides of Delhi. I come from a community called the Jats, J-A-T. We think that JAT stands for Justice, Action, and Truth, because we have only 2 professions, farming and soldiering, and one poet in the English language.
Someone mentioned Tamil in the
No,
chat.
we think that the word JAT stands for Justice, Action, and Truth. But if you come to Delhi, which is just 100 kilometers away from my village, they say it stands for Just Avoid Them. It took me almost 7 years, 7 years to get a poetry reading in Delhi. You know, I mean, people would be laughing and saying, "Oh."
Let me just explain the tiger from Sri Lanka. The tigers were the Tamil tigers who
Right,
fought for a war of liberation against the Sri Lankan government, and that's what. That's what
I thought I was. My memory was worse than it is, because I thought they came from the island, from an island off of India.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were from Pakistan or Bangladesh or I didn't think they were from the mainland.
Actual living tigers you find in India. Tigers, symbolic tigers, you still find in the island down south. Yeah.
Sadly, more tigers were killed in Sri Lanka during the War of Liberation than have been killed in India in recent times. That one terrible, terrible tragedy. Hi, Marianne. Hello, who's the young lady? Aren't you going to introduce us?
Oh, this is my granddaughter, Aubrey.
Hi. Hi.
Hi, Aubrey. Hi, Aubrey.
My name's Amit. How nice to meet you.
Aubrey.
Hello, Amit.
Oh, hi. Hi, Kate. How are you?
Oh, it's so wonderful to hear you. And I must share something. There was a time when Cultivating Voices had 10 minutes for 10 poets. And I was a Nubian, a new writer of poetry, but always I've always lived poetry, whether climbing a tree or on a swing or being in love. But there I was, and I looked at the list and I was assigned, first it was Amit, and then it was Clare, and then it was Indran. And I said, oh no, how could I be in between these two men, these two scholars, these two people? And then as the year has gone on, Amit and Indran are my teachers, and I love them. And they sing in languages that I don't know, but I listen to the poets read them around the world, and then they translate, and the translation in English gives me the word, but when I hear it from the poets that they are representing, it gives me so much more from my brothers, Amit and Indran. Thank you.
But, Kate, I agree with everything. Only thing is you need to rephrase that as Indran and Amit, because his scholarship is so extraordinary. It far exceeds any claim to scholarship I'll have in my life.
Okay, I will be corrected on that, but the order that we were put on Cultivating Voices was you, me, and Indran. And now Indran doesn't send me messages at 2 in the morning.
Well, I'll just have to start, Kate. I'll have to start.
Okay. We can handle these lessons, because
there's a lovely ghazal, Urdu ghazal in India. It says, "Baat niklegi to dur talak jayegi."
Okay.
If the fact comes out between, the fact of a relationship comes out, it will go a long way. It will travel everywhere.
Lovely.
Now we all know. Now we all know about. It's so beautiful. I have to hum 2 lines for you to. बात निकलेगी तो फिर दूर तलक जाएगी, लोग बेवजह उदासी का सबब पूछेंगे और भी पूछेंगे तुम परेशान क्यों हो.
Lovely.
If the truth about our relationship comes out, it will go so far, and people will ask you, why is your hair so dry, so unoiled? You will have to practice and learn to ignore what they say, because people can be cruel between 2 lovers. It's a beautiful ghazal. It was sung by Jagjit Singh, who died recently. He was a good friend and a wonderfully gifted singer.
Beautiful song. Thank you. Thank you.
I believed always, everybody, that we all need as poets to write some poetry that can be sung. It should be written in a cadence that can be sung, because the poems that can be sung will outlive us by thousands of years if they are any good. The ones that are prosaic will probably be used to cremate or bury us. But the songs, they will outlive us for thousands of years if they're any good. And that's why I started writing songs, in fact. I've written quite a few poems that can be sung. And Indran will, I think, appreciate this. joke. In Haryana, we all call Singh. Singh means lion, and there are lots of people called Singh in Sri Lanka as well. But it's not because we're brave on the battlefield. I think we're called Singh because none of us can sing. We're all tone deaf. but when we're happy, like I'm at this moment,
Oh, good.
we love to sing, and that takes courage to know you can't sing, but because you're in the company of really beautiful people, you feel like singing, so you sing. It doesn't matter if you can't sing. It's your love for your friends and your family and people that makes you sing. So
Amit, keep singing, man. What a show you've given us, and what a generous reading. It's my first time I'm hearing a good number of your poems together, and it's a treat. It's a treat. Thank you. And you're reading literally out of the brush there, the green tall grass.
I didn't want to spook people with my medical paraphernalia because I need to keep puffing oxygen in between, and I've got all kinds of things around me, oxygen, and I thought it would totally taint the.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I found this on Zoom, and I said, "Oh, this is a lifesaver." So I hold the phone with one hand, which makes it a little bit difficult to read properly and stay in the screen at the same time. So I just focus on the reading and forget about the screen time.
Great, thank you.
I would like to butt in now and thank Amit one more time. Lots of applause for Amit. And I want to ask if any of Bill's guests are here. Jack Hirschman, Adrian Rice, Marcial Delgado, or Manuel Gonzalez. Are any of those here?
No, I don't think so. And Adrian has not been able to get through the Zoom maze, unfortunately. He sends his apologies. So.
Okay.
It gave us.
Billy, you should auction their slots. Billy, you should auction their slots. I'm sure we're all hungry to read in COVID. I'll buy a few, even with your own money. That's
all
funny.
Right. So I want to also ask if Brendan Bonsack is here. I didn't see him, but if he's here, then Amit wanted him to read.
Yeah, he's incredible. I mean, you have to must listen to Brendan Bonsack. He's not just a poet; he's a great musician. He is an incredible host. I'm trying to see the list of participants. I can bring it up.
But apparently he's not with us. And then Kathal, did he send you a poem to read?
No, he's there. I can see his name on the list.
Okay, so go ahead and introduce Kathal, Brendan, or sorry, Amit.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've discovered after coming onto Zoom, because I only came onto Zoom after I met Bill Nevin's online. Bill is really, I mean, if anyone wants their money back, you have to catch Bill because he's responsible for my presence in New Mexico and on Zoom. I'd never Zoomed before this. And so everyone take a good look at Bill. That's the guy. Get him before the bears and the elk do. I'm certain that there were no elk out today. Otherwise, we'd never, got a glimpse of him.
I don't think Kathal is able to.
I just saw a message from him on chat.
That's why I unmuted myself.
Bernardo, did you get a poem?
Yes, I did. That's why I unmuted myself because I wanted to tell you that I have his poem.
Go ahead.
Oh, fantastic. Bernardo, go ahead.
Okay. The name of the poem is I Give Praise to Amit. I give praise to Amit, a great poet without equal. He's Indian to the core. He is the champion of the tiger. He is a diligent, strong, brave man, always loyal to his friends. Like the river Ganges, which flows endlessly towards the Indian Ocean, he has his own river of creation coursing within his own heart to compose more new poems. His poetry will live on for a long time, as long as there are great poets. Therefore, success, my brother, in poetry. K-Hall.
Thank you, Bernardo. All right, then I do think it is time to turn the microphone over to Sandy Yannone to read a poem and introduce her guests. Take it away, Sandy.
And can everyone mute if you're not muted?
Thank you so much, Billy. And of course, Amit, what a thrill it is to be here with you. I want to, before I read my poem, I just want to share with you all that the first time we met online was on Cultivating Voices live poetry. Amit and I had exchanged, he had sent me a few messages and asked how to get involved. And we were getting ready for our very last program of 2020. It was December 20th, and it was our holiday poetry open house. And it was really a celebration of the whole year. And Amit had never come to Cultivating Voices by that time. But from the first moment, he opened his mouth and shared that sonorous voice. I knew in that moment that he had brought something so special to that gathering. And he was first up because he was reading from India. And I believe that all the folks reading tonight with me, and thank you for being here tonight, were there that very afternoon, evening, wherever you were joining us from. So it's a real pleasure for me to be able to bring folks back to share their appreciation and love and support for you. You know, I wanted to also say that Amit never ceases for me to connect through poetry, as you all know. And I look for his postings daily on Cultivating Voices live poetry in the same way that I look for the sun to rise. I mean, that's how significant his work resonates with me. And today, of course, is International Tiger Day. And we were so fortunate to hear the last will and testament of the tiger on Cultivating Voices live poetry a couple of times. It felt only appropriate that the poem that I'm going to share today isn't one of my own, but how could I not share with you for the poet that I think of as the tiger, and who also wrote a beautiful poem for me when my beloved Bosco passed away in May. Our connection through the feline is very strong. I'm going to read for you all tonight William Blake's Tiger, the Tiger, in honor of Amit. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes. On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? I love the tiger. Thank you so much, Amit, and thank you for all that you brought to Cultivating Voices live poetry. And now it is my great pleasure to introduce 6 poets who also are here to honor you this evening. And first, joining us, another poet who always brings the soul to his readers and to his readings. The rituals of poetry live on through Fergus Hogan, the candles flame, and its incredible light. Joining us tonight from Waterford, Ireland, the author of The Bittern Cry, Fergus Hogan.
Hello, friends. Díobh a cardja galéir anocht tá fáilte ribh isteach's bedroom tonight. Hello, friends across the world. You're welcome into the bedroom tonight. I think most of us met through this lockdown and through the Zoom, through sisters like Sandy and Kate and brothers like Indran and Amit. Amit, we honor you tonight and thank you for gathering us all together again. I obviously wanted to write and read a poem tonight for you, Amit, brother. I also wanted to try and honor the nurses and the doctors and the carers over this lockdown, who've minded us so well. I think like everywhere else, the nurses in Ireland are poorly paid. They're unthanked. Generally, it's women doing hard work in a job that has a very poor union. And in Ireland, I think like a lot of other countries, a lot of the nurses come to Ireland from what might be called developing countries, and they send what they can home to their families and their children. And it's really impossible for them to bring their partners, their lovers and their children to Ireland. The visas are hard to get. The accommodation is too expensive, and COVID hasn't helped at all. But you know all of that. I think it's the same across the world. Amit, we don't have any tigers in Ireland. If we did, I would give them all to you tonight, brother. We have in our home 2 small Bichon dogs. Bichon dogs, I think you'll know, are small, white, fluffy dogs. And I've squeezed one of them into this poem. And they say you should be very careful about the animals you bring into your poems, or the pets you bring into your home, because you can end up looking like your dog all too soon. This poem tonight is a love poem, Amit. I'm tempted to sing it to you, brother. It's for Amit and the nurse. Sitting in the Sunday garden after a day digging worms with the robin, I rest my eyes a while in the deck chair, listening. I wonder about how our world works now, the take and give from there to here, the sin of greed, the pity of charity. Trapped deep within cocoons of shallowed breathing, our lives on earth return to ground zero. I consider how COVID-19 has followed trade routes of commerce, killing the old, the weak, the vulnerable, just like toxic capitalism. The small white Bichon dog by my side eats scotch grass and vomits it back up green, bringing me back into the garden suddenly again. Here and now, a bumblebee lifts itself slow and heavy to the lip of a tulip. I think of the nurse. Nurse, nurse. I've a cough and a rash and night sweats and a shortness of breath. I'm 50 years old and I'm afraid to tell the doctor in case she sends me for the test. 10 years ago, I spent 2 months in hospital with streptococcal pneumonia. The nurses said at the time I could have died. But when I got constipated, they said I was too young a man to be given the stuff they give to the older guys to sort them out. Instead, a young nurse from Thailand showed me a trick that her grandmother had given to her. You pinch your chin like this, she said. And the way she said it, she made me laugh out loud. And so for days and days and nights on end, I sat up straight in my bed, pinching my chin. And every night, the time the nurse from Thailand passed on or off duty by my bed, we laughed out loud together. And I still don't know if she was pulling my leg or having me on or just trying to help me relax. She said, my grandma Ya is the best natural herbalist or acupuncturist in the whole village back home. And I've thought of her every day of this lockdown. Her warm smile and her caring, broken English. And how she cried the morning she told me in a whisper how she missed her granny so much. How she worried that when her nana dies, she won't be able to afford to go back home. She's still repaying the debts her parents took on for her medical education. She's still repaying the cost of her flights to Ireland, her visa, her nursing registration, her cramped accommodation in the city. The last of the heat from the first summer day slips down behind the neighbour's hedge. Daffodils turn, cup the dying light. This night we gather in want of a good prayer. Instead, we offer our poems for our brother Amit. Gramagat, Akarja, the Gra.
Well, friends, as I said, Fergus always brings the candle and the light. And I always have so much to say, but I know tonight I'm not able to be my usual loquacious self, so I will keep the program moving further. Slancha, Fergus, and thank you. Well, on Cultivating Voices, again, on that day, we had another on December. We've been so blessed to have so many melodious poets join us with all like their full throat and full hearts and languages. And that is so true of this next poet joining us tonight, who is now also, as with Fergus, my dear friend, Josephine LoRe. And Josephine is, you've seen many times if you've been on Cultivating Voice. She's a fantastic teacher, translator, and of course, human being, and author of the Cowichan series, joining us tonight from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Thank you so much, Josephine.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be in this company, and I'm finding there's folks from different circles that I have read with and heard reading. I will try my best to, in my tribute to Amit and in recognition of how we as poets have been responding to COVID. The first poem that I'm reading was actually the first COVID poem that I wrote. And I was watching the news, and there were army trucks in Italy with body bags. And then here in Calgary, I woke up one morning and they had strung police tape at the children's playgrounds. So this one is called 6 Feet. Police tape on the stairs of slides, on swings, a cortege of army trucks, each filled with the dead. Bodies in black bags, no bedside deaths, no funerals, no gatherings, no weddings, no Sunday dinners with grandma and grandpa, no hugs. 6 feet is the minimum distance, feeling buried, standing up. Outside, flickers, magpies, squirrels, hares turning slowly brown, ice melting, days lengthening. And the only music that fits is the dirge. And at the playground, there is police tape, empty slides, empty swings. The second piece I'd like to share, I wrote in honor of my father. My family's from Sicily, and it's a little bit of a story of my father and my family. Tools. My father too used tools. Young, he apprenticed to a shoemaker because only the father and the eldest could work the sulfur mine, and he was the second. The third, really, the second having died before my father was born. My father was given his dead brother's name. I have the wooden forms in my closet, black, extendable geppetto feet on which to fit the leather to cobble shoes. But shoemaking was not in my father's destiny. He traveled to England first, learned how to say aluminium so you could hear the final I. When I was a child, people asked why I spoke with a British accent. Then to Belgium to work the mines, but there was a collapse, a tragedy at Charleroi. 262 migrants trapped, killed, many of them Italian. And my mother, seed of their first child in her belly, pleaded with my father to leave. From Le Havre, they crossed the Atlantic on La Flandre, like those who had fled the potato famine. And that time the British took land from the Scots for sheep pasture, the dispossessed, the displaced. In Canada, my father worked many jobs, an unskilled man with little knowledge of the language and even less of the laws. He ended up a carpenter, like the father of Christ, smelled of sawdust, hands rough, but never raised. Behind his ear, a pencil, not round, but flattened. It did not fit the sharpener, so he used a knife to create a chiseled edge while I watched. Nails and loose change in his pockets, his shoulders broad as his smile. He built things, fixed things, measured things, and having no sons, he worked alone. While we sisters learned to cook and clean, to pray the rosary and darn, embroider flowers and birds in silken colors, to be obedient, well-mannered above all. I would slink off to the garage to help my father by passing him the tools. I learned all their names. Lo marteggio, the hammer, la raspa, the file, la giravete, the screwdriver, la sega, la pinza, la chiave inglese, the wrench, whose words literally mean the English key. And that one whose syllables elude me, the planer that smooths wood, creating curlicues out of a tree. Oh, and that little silver heart-shaped box which fits the palm, its powder magic blue to mark a plumb line. I would slink to the garage, avoid the cloister of the house as willingly as I would slink into a book. What are my tools now? Computer, like the coiled cord of a phone that stretches across this continent and beyond to connect family, we all under house arrest. The charge to remain healthy, to avoid the symptomatic, the asymptomatic. My tools, memory and language, my tools. And the third piece I've written for Amit, and I was reading some of Amit's writings that are posted, and I was captured by this line: we hang by a lifeline of breath, and the line is thin. And I was thinking of the breath, of how we enter into this universe, and the first action is the intake of breath, inflating the lungs, and our final exit passage out of this world is the emptying of the lungs. And what you said tonight, Amit, between the throat and the ear, I believe the poem is the breath. This poem is called Living Air. I go to the forest to breathe in the green cedar, to walk among the hemlock and the spruce. But the globe so swiftly warming, the woodlands a combustion, and instead of living oxygen, I breathe in smoke and ash. So I go to the ocean to inhale the misty salt spray, kelp strewn at low tide's edge. But the seashore, a miasma of plastic desecration, and instead of living oxygen, I breathe in stink and waste. I go to Holy Mountain, the very peak of heaven, to breathe in pristine crystals of pure celestial air. But her pathways are congested with miles of human traffic, and instead of living oxygen, I breathe in the taint of ego and despair. So I go to the city to seek some quiet wisdom from the learned scholars there. Instead, I find contagion, the ravage of pandemic, my lungs slowly starving for that breath of living air. Thank you very much.
Grazie, 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 Josie.
Piacere mio.
Well, we move from living, the idea of living air. I think about that the word inspire, literally means also to breathe, right? To inspire. Thank you for that reading that, of course, did just that, as does Amit's work for all of us has inspired this gathering so far. Well, our next poet, from the first utterance to every single utterance of Angela Dribben's poetry has just awed and inspired me, as well as many of you here this evening. And again, I hearken back to that evening on December 20th, where very few of you that were with us on Zoom that night will ever forget or reading her praise poem. Angela Dribben's debut collection is Every Girl from Main Street Rag. Please welcome Angela Dribben.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to be here. Amit, this poem was written directly to you, from my throat to your ears. May there be some resonance. To the poet the bard, the seer. This poem is for this poet, rooted into the earth, crying to the sky, scribing from the borrowed thread of energy that unites us all. To the poet who sees translucent trails of the leaf miner, plaiting lace of locust leaves. To the poet who witnesses the beetle's excavation through the inner tissues of the leaf, a protected life in narrow space. To the poet who comprehends the complexity of the second generation of adult beetles drinking life that is not theirs until the entire locust tree turns brown. To the poet who strains his neck to see if this is glorious redesign. Is it our emerald ash borer, gypsy moth, Dutch elm disease, or the chestnut blight? To this poet who climbs the tree to see the tree. To the poet who questions the biologist when they say black locust trees are not truly a species of the forest. They grow in reverting fields and in edge habitats, such as along roadsides. To this poet nursing 19 languages on their tongue, who knows to ask what sounds we make when we chant forest. If it is a large area covered chiefly with trees and undergrowth, then can't a roadside still be a forest? To the poet who balks when the tourists name the mind-browning locust ugly. To the poet who names the locust resilience, strength, radiance, as it sustains its own life and surfaces again each spring, taller, broader, greened again. To the poet who asks the locust if it fears us when we bow up on the fox grapevines, relentlessly wrench their knots from its stressing branches, wreathe them around themselves till they can't get loose, calling ourselves savior, hero, humanitarian. To the poet who knows we should have asked the locust if it ever even wanted the light.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, Angela Dribben, for, as you are wont to do, bringing the sustenance through the light tonight in our reading. Thanks, with gratitude. Well, next, Carolyne Wright joins us from Seattle. And really the title poem from her latest book, This Dream, the World, New and Selected Poems, really begged me to think about, her body of work and the way that she honors poets and poetry through that lens of the multilingual as a translator and as a humanitarian. So would you please join me in welcoming Carolyne Wright?
Thank you so much, Sandy and Billy and everybody gathered here. And thank you, Amit, for your powerful work and for your life there as a farmer and not a soldier. And, it's such an honor to be part of this gathering here, to read poetry and to breathe that inspiration into all of our lives. What I'm going to do, I just switched entirely what I was going to do. But I thought what I would do in honor of the part of the world in which you are living, Amit, is to read one of my translations from Bengali of the poet Nobonita Dev Sen, who left us. She did her journey to the Ganga, her Ganga Jatra in 2019, when she passed away. And she was a poet I worked with quite a great deal when I was there in Kolkata. And I would go to her house, and there's a whole story to write about that. But I'm going to read a poem of hers called Story of the Forest, or in Bengali, it's Aronyok. And this is my translation. She's also done her own translation, but this is just called Story of the Forest, and you'll see why I chose it. Mother, my exile in the forest is ended now. Mother, underneath this matted hair and beard, recognize my adolescent's face, recognize your nursing child. Mother, bare your breasts and see whether the 7 streams of nectared milk gush towards my open mouth. Look, mother, the feet on which your golden anklets jingle, how torn and wounded by thorns, how scarred and roughened that arm where you had tied your amulet, chanting a prayer at the time of my birth. Mother, look, my breast where your hand planted this sapling of a heart in a green expanse of grass. There in the dark mesh of this hidden forest, impenetrable, on carnivorous branches now, fanged leaves, all devouring entangled tongues. How it has grown like a tiger, that tree, gnawing the hearts of others. Mother, my exile in the forest is ended now. Now the forest dwells in me. And there's a whole story behind that poem. I translated it with the help of a wonderful gentleman named Sunil B. Roy, who lived near me in South Calcutta. And I'm going to read one more poem of my own, which also deals with a sort of a journey, not back from the forest, but going out into a place beyond. And it's called The Discipline of Becoming Invisible. The discipline of becoming invisible is not what you think it is. Start by driving all night cross country, avoiding towns. Travel light, take breath, words enough for a few poems, your clearest sight. Don't calculate the miles or wonder if you'll ever get to the point on the map where your road breaks off. You can't miss invisibility. It wears your face inside out. It stares back at you everywhere. It's on the signs at midnight glowing off the shoulder of the road. It's in the number of hours and the sleep it takes to drain a city out of you. It's in the light that fires your retinas with sight. When you arrive at the toll gate where the road ends, you'll pay the last of yourself out as the roped nerves uncoil themselves from the base of your brain. Invisibility will be your change. You'll realize you've carried it all the way, like chromosomes or the life maps on your palms. Now, when you peer into the rear view mirror, only the road winds backward in the glass distance. As you slide away into the high, clairvoyant blue of dusk, you'll wonder what sign it was. In what unknown code at the road's edge first glowed in your sleep and pointed here, where your breath lets go and your sight opens as it turns to light. Thank you, and blessings to you, Amit.
That was Carolyne Wright, everybody. Thank you for bringing the insight of that cross-cultural experience of translating from the Bengali and sharing that with us on this very, very special evening, in honor and support of Amit, and just fantastic to hear always your poems. Thank you. Well, folks, our next two readers in my set, which, boy, what a great reading this has been already tonight. Two people that, you know, Cultivating Voices couldn't do its work without them. And the first is Kim Ports Parsons. You know, Kim is with us every week, and as a result of that, she has spent so much time with Amit, and also having that privilege of being able to listen and learn and be inspired and inspire her work through that experience. Well, Kim is joining us this evening from the beautiful, beautiful Shenandoah Valley with her lush gardens, as well as her lush, lush, deep poetry. Thank you for being with us tonight, Kim.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and everyone. What a beautiful, beautiful reading. And Amit, it is such an honor to be your friend and sister in poetry and to make connections week after week through your words and your beautiful voice and your incredible spirit. And when I think of you, I think of the urge to embrace life through poetry, to affirm life through poetry, to rise above the difficulties and bathe in the beauty of life through poetry. And I have written us a short sonnet, which I'm going to share, which I think touches a little bit humbly on those themes. Thank you all for letting me participate tonight. It's really wonderful to be here. Life goals. To see the way a coneflower sees a carpenter bee, vibrating with hunger and need. To need the way a stone requires rain, wind, time, and gravity's pull. To pull the way a birch pulls from its core without practice or instruction, bends to grass with grace, forgiving the wind's trespasses. To forgive and hold firm as the goldfinch on the thin, swaying stalk of millet in March. To shine as the same finch when summer comes, flashing sun on broken glass, loop of golden air. To hear the way the mole hears through every hair, the next shining moment of the underground day. A lighthouse made of sound, life at the root. Blessings to you all. Blessings to you, Amit. Thank you.
How could we not have a reading without a sonnet, and one of such depth and specificity and connection of the human, the animal, the earth, and the spirit, all embodied in just those 14, not just, but those 14 lines of Kim Ports Parsons. Thank you, my dear sister, for being here tonight. Well, finally, for my fabulous group of poets, the roar of poets, as I've been calling them on Cultivating Voices page today, we welcome Don Krieger. You all know Don as two things. He is the life breath of so many readings, supporting the many platforms, including this very reading tonight. But it is Don's poetry that is always a higher, greater call for justice and humanity. And that is no better exemplified than in his current collection, Discovery. Would you please welcome our dear friend and tremendous anchor to so many, Don Krieger.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks, Kim. That was a good poem. And everyone. I sent one poem. I sent my poem to Amit, but I'm going to read something else. I don't think I can read that one. Sparrow Generations. Brown offered a full ride on my tennis, MIT on academics. Even then I knew I want to learn in college. I have a choice. Chris Dolman, Tony Dorsett, Dan Marino, the lucky athletes who soared to glory. Their generations passed through Pitt Stadium right outside my office window. I marveled as the Coliseum was demolished, and one early morning at the end, when no one else was looking, the facade with the entrance gate fell, the last grand relic to come down, broke the street and the sewer beneath, and I finally understood that choice I made at 16. Now it's an event center, the Pete, glass and concrete, food mall and Wi-Fi, Judas Priest and basketball, Foo Fighters, hockey, Disney on Ice. Sometimes I ride up the escalator, mostly I walk outdoors through the hedges, alive with birds, feral cats and groundhogs. Either way, you can't miss that vaulted interior, limitless ceiling, video wall like the side of a house, sports news constantly running, pictures of trophied athletes displayed in locked cases like numbered Audubon prints or rare baseball cards. In the morning, I pass by the gym. Even at 6, there are students on the treadmills, boys fit and massive, beautiful, girls fit and beautiful too. I see them on campus with their teammates, lounging and laughing, bruised and braced, casts and crutches. Often a bird strikes the peat windows in flight, then lies still on the concrete till the janitor comes. Sometimes I carry one back to the hedges when it's been days. Last week I saw a sparrow by the glass wall, standing on the concrete like a statue, even when I knelt beside it. I touched his belly, urged him, step up. He hopped over my finger, then turned and flew onto my hand. the life and quickness in that tiny body, the bright trust of a stranger. I slowly stood and walked him up to the hedges, urged him once more, and he flew free on to his own life.
Let's all unmute and thank the Cultivating Voices live segment of this group. Tremendous poetry.
Yeah.
Well
Incredible.
done.
Incredible.
Thanks, everybody. Fabulous, as always.
Like attending a master class. Learned so much today. My God.
Thank you so much, Sandy, and all of your Cultivating Voices. Thank you so much. Next, we turn to John Roche and his invited guests. Please take it away, John.
Thank you, Billy, and thanks everybody. What a great night for poetry, and especially to Amit. What an incredible reading. I'm still recovering from that, so thank you. I've got two tiny poems to start with, and then I have some poets to introduce. And the first is from my earlier, the first Joe the Poet book. It's called Joe the Poet at the World Naval. Joe searches for his chosen spot, place of emergence into his own joyous lake. 20 years, for 20 years he walks with forward striving toes, bony thighs and rain bespattered clothes to show for it. He gets detained by mundane matters for 20 more, sets out again renewed of purpose, but fearful lest he's tarried too long, hopes it's still there, hasn't been fracked or paved or blown up in the recent war. 20 more years gone, his steps grown shorter, his eyesight weaker. If he slows down just a tad more, he'll be right on top of it. And the next poem is from the Survival volume we did in 2018, part of the Poet Speak series. And it's by Martha Treichler. I just saw her on Zoom. She's 92 years old and has produced something like 8 volumes of poetry in the past decade and has another one on the way. And she's still farming too. Another farmer poet, Amit, in upstate New York. So this is from Martha Treichler called Survival. It's the last poem from the book, Survival. Survival is only the beginning. Life starts after that. When you say I survived, that is good, but not good enough. Survival is only the beginning. Then we must gather our tools and get to work. And Amit is a working poet. And we've just been amazed these past months, just how many poems. He seems to write 2 or 3 every day. It's amazing, and they're damn good poems. So thank you. All right, so our first up from Albuquerque is Holly Wilson. And Holly is a musician, a dancer, a performance poet who is very, very well known to Albuquerque audiences and New Mexico audiences. And she also hosts the monthly Tortuga Gallery open mic, which has been on Zoom of late. I know Amit's been on it, and many of you, Sandy. And I think it's also going to be, hybrid starting pretty soon, in person and Zoom. So Holly, would you unmute?
Thank you. I'm here. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Actually, we're going to do it in person at Tortuga and on Zoom the night before. So I'll be doing 2 readings, so we can still have our international audience come in. I picked this poem to read for Amit because he's brought such international, I don't know, universal energy into our poetry readings, and because of all the different people that are here tonight from different places. So this is for you, Amit, and thank you so much for your generous sharing of your words. It's been great getting to know you. It's called Free Zone. No borders, flags, or fences round my door. The world seeps in and flows back out, like Jamaican water rising into air, becoming snow in Switzerland. I do not cease to exist as El Paso turns into Juarez, where imaginary halfway point divides river that has kept nobody out. I cannot differentiate Arabs and Jews, Hindus and Muslims. The mountain does not stop to draw a line to mark her lower ridge. Mountains and mountains flow into each other, flow into oceans and beaches around continuous circles. Wherever we go, we run into each other. We always come back to ourselves. Sharing one sphere in space, we can only see each other through open doors. The lights from our vibrations mingle and shine out to other planets. We are to them as islands scattered in an infinite archipelago. No barbed wire trenches block the universe from coming in. I go out as it comes to me. If we didn't put them up, there'd be no need for borders, flags, or fences. Thank you. And bless you, Amit, all the health and happiness in the world for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. An apt poem indeed. Thank you. Next up, also from Albuquerque is Sylvia, well, these days, Sylvia Ramos Cruz, retired surgeon living in Albuquerque, whose photographs and award-winning prose and poetry appear in local national publications, and too many to mention. And right now she's been working on a fascinating project of Haibun about the historic women of New Mexico, and also very involved with the history of the suffrage movement. So Sylvia.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you all for being here and sharing poetry with all of us. It's truly inspiring. I want to thank you, especially Amit, for your poetry and your poetic voice. I really enjoyed especially the children's poems. We rarely, if ever, hear children's voices at any of our meetings. I don't mean having little children there perhaps, but having poets not be afraid to hear, to read their poems to children. I enjoy that very much. May you soon walk in the sunlight of good health and well-being. My poem is Deliverance. Tingley Coliseum, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 2021. The Coliseum, silent for a pandemic year, holds its first event, not a sports extravaganza, country music concert, or comedy club, a COVID-19 vaccination clinic. Arena lights are on, but the electronic scoreboards and clock remain asleep across from the announcer's glassed-in nest, hovering empty over the court. Flags for Coca-Cola, United Rentals, Document Solutions, Flea Market float near the upper reaches, alongside the Stars and Stripes and New Mexico Zia, all trembling slightly in the breeze from the ramped-up ventilation. Below on the floor, all is ready. Yellow arrows in, blue arrows out, metal gates to keep lines in check, chairs spaced and sanitized. In fact, everything sanitized. Vaccination station tables topped with boxes of blue latex-free gloves, blood red sharps containers, rectangular bins brimming with vaccines laid side to side, top to bottom, like ICBM missiles loaded on railway cars. And we, the troops, masked and vested in task colors, Expo Park employees in neon yellow-green, volunteers and health department team leaders in black, white supply runners, blue vaccinators, green scribes, yellow flow directors, red medical observers, all wearing our names over our hearts, ready. Then the main event. Doors open, masked men and women, some in wheelchairs, some with a retinue of adults and children, march in, dressed in casual or business clothes, hijabs, saris, and shorts, shot in Oxfords, stilettos, sneakers, and boots. All wait quietly on line, sit behind screens, expose tender arms for shots. File out, fold into chairs for 15 or 30 minutes observations. Most look at phones, glance up once in a while. All of us, observers and observed, still timid after a year, reminding ourselves and others not to get close. Some carry on quiet conversations. Others ask anxious questions about what to expect. And is it really safe? At last, having received their deliverance in the form of "your observation time is done," text from the state, look around to see if they are indeed free to go. Then get up, follow arrows to the exit, perhaps wave goodbye or say gracias, whispering as if leaving a place of prayer before stepping out into the sunlight. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sylvia. That was a lovely chronicle and tribute to all the health workers and volunteers. Thank you so much. And changing places here in the green box is our next reader, Jessie Ehrenberg, who is the author of Surprise from Foothills Publishing, which won a silver award in the inaugural Margaret Randall Poetry Book Contest a couple of years ago. And as I understand, Jessie has a second book about to be published as well. So Jessie, take it away. Unmute, please.
Let's try that. Okay. Thank you, John. Amit, this is for you. I was thinking about Amit, and it started me thinking about India and Indian poetry. And then I thought about America and American poetry. And I thought about where they both started. In America, we can trace our poetry back to the early 1600s, to the colonial first wave of European genocidal land grab that was to eventually become, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary, what we still call the United States. But I digress. So at most, that gives us a poetic history of about 400 years. Contrast that with India, whose poetry goes back 20 centuries to the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. I think that's why when you hear Amit read, beyond the beauty of his imagery and metaphor, beyond his passion for the oppressed, you hear the voice of history. It's in his cadence, that indecipherable place where words turn into music. It's in the very power of his poems. Now, I have to say, I know little of Amit beyond his poems and the artistry of his presentation. But sometimes a little is enough. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you, Jesse, the voice of history. Great context there. Thank you. Thank you. Is Debbie Brody here? Debbie Cap Brody? I don't see her. She's supposed to be the next reader, but I don't see her. Then we'll move on to another Santa Fe poet, Donald Levering, and who is just one of the most sought out poets in New Mexico, and has I think something like 10 books out. Most recent ones: The Water Leveling with Us, Coltrane's God, Previous Lives, Any Song Will Do, and Horsetail, that came out last year from Woodley Press. So would you please welcome Donald Levering?
Thank you, John. I'm honored to be among such a cast of readers here. I'll just read one poem. It's called The Spring of Our Contagion. Moon wanes, the moon swells. Old clothes don't fit my niece's growing abdomen. Even with her pregnant bloom, sometimes she slips into a cloak. Bloom, this spring of our contagion. We wear winter into May. People stand at coffin lengths apart. Their grins are masked. Everyone can don the cloak of gloom. Nightmares can come true. I dream of doorways blocked by coffins and someone coughing in my closet. The screen door of my neighbor's emptied house keeps slamming closed. The virus claimed his life. His door keeps slamming closed. I keep dreaming of blocked doorways and someone coughing in my closet. The virus claimed his life. Wars against the poor gain ground. Jobs are slashed and the debts amass. Business is on life support. Wars against the poor gain ground. Yet this spring, the apricots have burst into bedazzlement of blooms, as if this were spring as usual, with apricots, bedazzlement. Just as in an ordinary spring, I hear the pulse of mourning doves, like tolling bells. The mourning doves are calling each other as usual. Moon wanes, the moon swells like any other year. My niece grows luminous with child, her due date nears, as if this were any other year.
Thank you, Donald. Incredible poem about our times, and a coffin's length apart. Yes.
Yes.
I guess they didn't think that part through. Yeah.
Excuse me, everybody. I have to go shortly. I have a lunch date.
Hi, Gordon.
Would you like to hear a purely Australian poem before I go?
I'm going to turn things over to Billy a second, and since he's running things.
Gordon, go ahead with a short poem.
Okay. Go ahead, Gordon.
Okay. This one's called Red Ochre on White Canvas. How do you paint a desert scene? Red ochre on white canvas. Most desolate place you've ever seen. Red ochre on white canvas. Easel set beside a rust red road. Red ochre on white canvas. A road train pulling a long heavy load, red ochre on white canvas. Massive red bulk of Uluru, red ochre on white canvas. Catajuca boulders of ochre hue, red ochre on white canvas. Bungle bungles, domes and caves, red ochre on white canvas. The artist paints the scenes to save, red ochre on white canvas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Back to you, John.
I'll say goodbye to everybody. Amit, it's been great seeing you again, and I look forward to our next meeting. Okay, goodbye, everybody.
Thanks
Bye.
very
Thank
much.
you, Gordon.
Thank
Go ahead, John. Back to-
Yes. Okay. So thank you again, Donald and Gordon. Next up from Placitas, New Mexico, a few miles from where I am, is Larry Goodell. And Larry could rightfully be called the Bard of Placitas, having lived in the village since the early 1960s. Around that time, he started his celebrated Duende Press, now archived at Yale University's Beinecke Library. Larry also helped pioneer the field of performance poetry, designing his own mask costumes and props, sometimes with the help of his artist spouse, Lenore. He took part in the legendary Taoist Poetry Circus and emceed a number of readings reading series over the decades in this area. Larry continues to publish his own books of poetry at an astounding rate. Larry Goodell, please unmute. You're still muted, Larry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sorry I've been so sluggish about getting into the Zoom thing. And so sorry I haven't run into Ahmed before. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought I would read, this is from my book, Nothing to Laugh About. This is the poem I was asked to write, and I wrote for John Roche and Jules Nyquist when they got married. It's called Arrival, and this has to do with movements of people. And now I've mentioned something about how he got where he is. So this also involves my family as well as John and Jules. Historic ether, as the moon comes up and mesmerizes. The glimmer in the clouds is full burst. The old terms catch the tongue as well as the new, as seen through the upheaval of the oral. Place takes up dance in the plaza. All lenses along the borders improve the light, as stars will tell you late at night. As you come home anytime, the light lifts up to greet you, whirling in on the old 66 or I-25, I-10, 64, 60, 285, 54, 84 to I-40, or descending as the land gets closer and you bump down on it. You have arrived. The slightly expanded out square, like a skirt in the strange toe to Sonora, the state will bring you to an illumination of its past, as the voices of the Rio Grande, the Indian Rio Grande, is in company with poverty, as a starving drought will enter your soul, as well as the vistas of gypsum and striking red. What sustains and turns into love is the honesty. The this is what is, and along with this, delight in the friendship of voice, the articulation of friends, the real ones, the real emergence as those who come here long before us, as my father's mother and father in a wagon from Kansas, as all of us, any way we can, arrive where we are, as they did in Grenville, in Artesia, and Roswell, as you did, Connecticut, New York, Minneapolis, and all, or truly emerging up from the ground and building the first empires here. Love finds love in happenstance, in chance, in mystery and change, as I celebrate my love, finding New York to New Mexico, and New Mexico already here. May you and you all see with brighter eyes and hear what comes to you to hear as true partnership is possible. Break through like the moon and shining stars and water when thought absent suddenly surprises as Las Huertas every day in mind and actuality greets me. Blessings in festival of the seasonal reverberates, history making new history, the story telling itself over and over in ever new ways is what you are beginning to tell. Love folds out in creaturehood and presents us with a map of understanding and your partnership. And very, very shortly, thank you. And love to you, John and Jules. It's just
Thank you. Great to hear that again after 5 years.
Very shortly, what is the reason we're all here and not being hounded and oppressed and thrown in jail like so many of our brothers and sisters are. Free is speech. Breathing the sky open, it is free space, as air is to speech. Free speech, as air is, so is speech. Free to say and say and say forever the freedom to say. What you mean in your speech can be disparaging, can be enlightening, and cannot be prohibited. But free, free as the air you breathe, the speech of your tongue, the air in your lungs, the breath of the earth speaks freely to you and me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you. I have one more poet to introduce. I see she's having some trouble with sound. Hopefully that can be rectified. It's Meena Chopra, a Toronto-based poet and visual artist who was born and raised in northern India. Her book, Color and Radiance, is an anthology of Indian poets living in Canada. So, unmute Meena if you can. Meena?
Apparently her sound system is not working, her microphone. Meena, can you hear us? Put your thumb up if you can hear us.
I don't know if sometimes if you get out and then come back in, sometimes it corrects itself. So that's the only thing I think I could suggest.
Yes, Meena, if you can hear us, go ahead and leave the session and then come back in and see if you are able to be heard at that point. Put your thumb up if you understand. She has her hand up.
Billy?
Yes.
This is Lenora. She put in the chat that she could not hear.
Okay.
So you might want to type it in to her to get out and come back.
Okay. So anyway, that's my group. And hopefully we'll have Meena back up in a few minutes.
Let me just type this message.
Okay. I just sent a message, but you can send.
Okay. Okay, great.
So I'll turn things back to Billy.
Okay, very good. And let's take a moment to applaud all of John's guests and John's poetry. Thank you.
What a great set. Thank you, everybody. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. All right, it is my lot in life to go last, but certainly not least. I have a poem that I wrote today for Amit, which I would like to read. It occurred to me when I awoke this morning about 3 a.m. And was thinking of miracles and Amit. So Amit, this is for you. As I awaken early, my first thoughts are of miracles, miracles with Amit. Miracle of the internet. We can touch each other with our voices, our faces, our poetry via Facebook, via Zoom. The miracle, a new brother in poetry I did not know I had until this internet brought us together. Simultaneous electrons sizzling between us. The miracle of rain, which fell on both of us this morning, a delicious simultaneous shower, blessing our brotherhood on opposite ends of the earth. The miracle of birth. We were both born the same year, just 44 years ago. Brothers from other mothers, in separate wombs, yet destined to be together. The miracle of sharing death, the deaths of our sweet beloved children in car crashes. We weep together in a worldwide rain. The miracle of COVID survival. You, by your sheer miraculous determination to live and share poetry, and I, by the miracle of scientific innovation, the miracle of a vaccine. The miracle of love, our love for each other, Amit, and our love of poetry as the powerful, joyful, healing miracle of deep feelings expressed. Many miraculous blessings to you, Amit. I'll be with you anon next year, together in an embrace of miracles, my poetic brother. Thank you, Amit.
And Billy, do you have a list of people that are reading yet, since nobody called my name yet?
Yes, I have that list.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if you didn't mention.
I'll read it quickly and then I'll go through each of you. First, we have Teresa Gallion, then Miriam Sagan, then Janet Ruth, then Vijali Hamilton, then Hakim Bellamy, then Lou Cimalore, and then finally Zachary Kluckman. Please welcome Teresa Gallion, author of 4 books, the most recent of which is entitled, and I love this title, Scent of Love. She describes herself as a seeker in a journey on unfolding spirituality in the present lifetime. Take it away, Teresa.
I want to say blessings to dear Amit, and I wish you healing, light, and love. Take care. The poem I'm reading is a poem I wrote for the world, and it is appropriate for the world since we have this happening all over the world. It's called Pandemic Uglies. Mother stands on the top of the mountain, smiling and frowning. Even in the pandemic, some of the children dance with arrogance, ignorance, and inconsiderateness. Their karmic debt will eventually drown them. The ugly element of human shows its face with every crisis. The trolls, naysayers, blamers, money grabbers, scammers all come out as the alternative virus. They do much harm, but cannot win. There's a reserve team, much more powerful. The army of humanity always comes too. Though they may suffer much, nothing stops compassion's flood. Still, the question remains afloat. Will the human species learn to appreciate a new day? The planet belongs to no one, and respect for Mother Earth is required. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. Next, we have Miriam Sagan, a Santa Fe poet with at least 30 books to her credit. And before her retirement, she founded and directed the creative writing program at Santa Fe Community College. And this is Miriam's first reading at a Fixed and Free event. Welcome, Miriam Sagan.
So much. It's just been delightful to be here and to listen to you all. I'm going to read a poem called In the Monastery of Fragrance and Panic, and it's about the pandemic. It's the title poem of a little chapbook of mine that was actually published in India earlier this year from Cyberwit Press. I highly recommend them. We, as you know, in New Mexico were locked down for a long time, and I created a kind of poetry game where I thought, what if I wasn't locked down because I was in a pandemic? What if I had decided to reform and I'd gone to a Zen Buddhist monastery and I was doing a 100-day practice period, which has been something I'm aware of? What would I do? What would I do every day? What do monks do? Well, they write poetry and they do housework. There might be a little more erotic love in this poem than is usual in monasteries, because really the poems ended up about being my own life and about a sense of containment. Anyway, thank you for listening. In the Monastery of Fragrance and Panic, I sat in the sand of the arroyo. There was no wave to wash my footprints away, other than time, other than the wind, other than not knowing where I was going. I remember when the children emptied the vegetable crisper and planted all the scallions in the dry wash, expecting harvest, expecting cities. These cities, named and nameless, come and go with the observer. We couldn't find the ruined Pueblo driving back and forth on Arroyo Hondo. In the monastery of tequila and triple sec and ice cubes, I met you, my love, in bed and attempted to lick the salt off every rim. In the arroyo of awakening and regret, I crossed my legs, as did the dry bush, as did the reddish cliffs, as did the path which kept appearing and disappearing on a perfectly clear day. Thank you all and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Miriam.
Thanks, Miriam.
Hey, did you read my note?
Say again?
Did you read my note?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Basically, I didn't hear my name called. You sent me an email to tell me I was, I thought you were saying I was will be included in the reading. Bernardo.
Please tell me your name again.
Bernardo.
Bernardo. Yeah. I think we'll wait until we have the rest of those poets programmed, if I may.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to introduce Janet Ruth, a favorite of our fiction-free readings. She's a retired New Mexico ornithologist, and she has a book entitled Feathered Dreams, Celebrating Birds in Poems, Stories, and Images. Please welcome Janet Ruth.
Thank you, Billy. I think there is a bird in this poem, although this is not a bird poem. I write plenty of those. This is a poem I wrote specifically for Amit. And I was so glad that you ended your reading, Amit, with the last will and testament of the tiger, because I have borrowed your form and some of your phrases to tell a different story that you gave me permission by having written that poem to express my own outrage about. And at least for now, it's called Last Will and Testament of the Polar Bear. When you have stolen from me the last of the sea ice that paved my way to the ringed seals that sustain me, when you have thawed the last of the permafrost, when you have melted the last of the snowbanks where I excavated caves to birth my cubs. Oh, driller of oil, consumer of fuel, improver of habitat, climate alchemist. You will have killed me as surely as if you wielded that thunder stick of old, though my death will not be as quick, as clean, or as bloody. I too have hunted and killed, but every kill was face to face with my prey. There was a chance to escape beneath the ice, and some of the blood poured back into the cycle of life, a steaming sacrifice on the altar of our great icy mother. But you consume and consume and consume, driven by what you want, not what you need. Wretched alchemist, you attempt to transform beauty and diversity into gold and fleeting gratification, but are left with only a poverty of ash. So before you have consumed it all, before there is nothing left for any other being, before there is in fact nothing left, even for you, I pray that you will stand before me, look into my eyes, and watch me die. I pray that you will reach deep for some tiny shred of respect and mercy left inside you, and that you will leave all parts of me behind. I have ruled this frozen kingdom at our great mother's decree to kill or be killed and feed the cycle. And there is some justice in being scavenged by a remaining Arctic fox or raven to alleviate their starvation, to be returned to the earth as carrion. Leave the yellowed portions of my fur to reflect the pale, never-setting Arctic sun at summer solstice, my black skin to darken a night sky full of stars in midwinter, the fading gleam in my eye to reflect a curtain of aurora borealis drifting down over the world's stage. You cannot hope to contain my rage, so let my roar echo through an empty world that once was filled with a symphony of sonorous whale song, walrus groans, seal barks, raven croaks, wolf howls, and the thump of willow ptarmigan wings against the snow. May my claws slash through the lies until they reach the truth. May my teeth tear the false words of promise from your books and speeches and legislation. May my bones, at least for a time, bear witness to the wonder that once was. I am so weak, I cannot remember my last meal, but even so, I could stand on my hind legs one last time before I die. I would tower over you, your puny defenses, your puny excuses. I could break you like a twig. I could tear you flesh from bone, but you are not worth the effort. So I will draw myself around my soul, that part of me you cannot kill, that part of me which you in your blindness claimed only for your kind. I will join the souls of others. We will turn our backs on you and we will walk away. And when all of you are also gone, when you have died of starvation or disease, cataclysm or loneliness, then perhaps some small bit of my white fur will remain. My white fur, which is not really white, but transparent and pigment-free, scattering and reflecting light like ice and snow. Perhaps this tuft of a memory of me will drift across the land that is now so brown, over the sea that is now so dark. The world will dream of white, and our great icy mother in her frozen weeping will bring a new ice age.
Thank you very much. Beautiful, Janet. Thank you so much. Our next poet is Vijali Hamilton. For 31 years, Vijali has worked and taught around the world as an artist and peacemaker. She started her World Wheel Global Peace Through the Arts in 1986 to explore the role that community-based art can play in building a world of peace. Over 1,000 of her artworks are in museums, public places, and private collections. And she has done quite a bit of work in India, as I understand it, working on building a school there. Or was it Afghanistan? I apologize if I messed that up.
It was
Please, please welcome Vijali Hamilton.
Thank you so much. I just have been so inspired by the poetry and Amit's group of poems. The first time I've heard him read a number of poems together, and I'm amazed. And I will read this one poem that is titled, "The Men I Love." Dear sleep, as spring warms the days, and my heart moves again after living with death, and my mind moves to the men I love. Father, 3 months with me, his spirit soars while body shrinks, then finally he takes flight. As a child, I sent love and tears to my absent father, my absent mother, but no love returned. Absent the body, absent the holding, perhaps I learned to love the earth because the flesh was absent. The men I love, perhaps you today, walking in flesh and bone, you who love the earth the way I do, seeing spirit in mountains and rivers, in forests and deserts. The men I love, not God the Father in sky above. I have no love for thee out of reach, but that same spirit I love in men, walking on earth, kissing soil and stones with their feet, weeping as we all weep when the heart spills tears for the people we love, for the uncertainty of life, for the earth being raped again and again, gang bang raped with no meaning, just greed and greed and more greed. The men I love, you, Amit Dahiyabadshah, excuse me if I don't pronounce it, with your voice of truth, even as COVID Delta takes your breath, your poetry still speaks through your pores, through your will to live. The men I love, Chief Seattle, his heart weeping for his people, his mind seeing our future, now taking shape before our eyes, the buffalo gone, the pure water gone, the trees in the Amazon gone, the air filled with pollutants, and in time, perhaps the people gone. But what if the youth rise up, young boys, young girls, with a vision so clear, penetrating the lives we live, speaking the truth, untelevised, walking the talk, unspoken, singing the praises of the sacred unsung, touching our hearts unloved, while holding hands with the men I love and our whole family of earth.
Thank you so much, Vijali. Our next poet was the inaugural Albuquerque Poet Laureate, Hakim Bellamy, who also is a multiple time champion in slam poetry. a magnificent performance poetry, Hakim Bellamy.
Thank you, Billy. Can you guys hear me? I'm kind of in transit, and now also waiting for my poems to load because they're taking like a long time right now. So give me a second. There we go. So and thank you, Vijali. That was amazing. I'm Amit. I'm sending you love, brother, for the recovery, for the additional recovery, and sending love to all of us in the pandemic, trying to navigate this, and doing so in poem and in community. So thank you to all the organizers for bringing this together as well. Two short poems, because known as a slam poet, so usually extra wordy, but two very short poems that were written in the pandemic. I haven't actually had a lot of time to write in the pandemic. So the first one's called Invisible Flood, and the other one's called Home. Invisible Flood, the storm. The last time the world purged itself, we were water broke. This go round, money broke. Two of anything became difficult to come by, particularly mass. Some say the reset was so necessary that the birds, immune to economic sterilization, somehow miraculously tripled their population overnight. Boomers, evidenced by the earnest of their song. I don't know if there were actually more of them, or whether they were simply singing louder, or if it was just silence before. Home. Home has taken on a different meaning in the past few months. It used to mean the opposite of lonely. It used to mean favorite place for coffee and conversation, favorite happy hour and bakery, favorite place to buy books, boots, favorite place to watch bands and balloons. It used to mean the mandatory breakfast burrito, no matter what time of day, immediately upon landing after the return flight. Who the hell cares? What happens when hometown means ghost town? When you no longer have access to your favorite haunts? You realize home is more than a place. It is the people we are missing. It means together is the opposite of alone. And together, we've survived the illest econ class of our lives and left having learned that commerce is so much more than a steady supply of transactions. It is a current of interpersonal interactions that inevitably begins with the human taking action. So here we stand, still, together, still, with nothing but two keeping handfuls of future, soberingly aware that our strength in numbers is really all we've ever had, and we still got it. Thank you. Much love.
Thank you very much, Hakim. We have two more scheduled poets. First, please welcome Lou Cimalore, a gentle giant with a head of hair and a beard that I envy. Take it away, Lou, please.
Good evening. Thank you, Amit, and everyone, for a lovely night of poetry. Blessings, Amit. May your golden heart shine on through the sun, the moon, the earth, and stars. This poem is called Things I Missed, Things I've Missed. I miss the times when we ate together during the holidays. The frittatas of morning, the turkey and gravy and mashed potatoes covered with red chili of Thanksgiving, the football game between Westerly and Stonington, the cookies and soprasat, and bread of Easter, with the child face of the baby Jesus in every child's face, represented by a loaf of soft bread and a single hard-boiled egg standing in for Jesus's face, and our faces too. The chocolates and heart-shaped pizza of Valentine's Day, the sweet tasting zeppole of St. Joseph's Day, the pasta and bacala of Christmas Eve, the banana fritters, sausage, and bacon of Christmas morning, the snacks and commercials of Super Bowl Sunday, the black-eyed peas and pozole of New Year. All these delicious flavors, textures, and smells, filling me with pleasure, I do miss so. But there's much more, so much more of time spent with the people I love and treasure. We are bound together with memories and laughter. It's all this I miss, and more. The crunchiness of family, the delectability of friends, the sweet, savory nuttiness of those I hold dear. I'm looking forward to the day we'll come together once again and taste the joys of each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. And now for our last scheduled poet, we have Zachary Kluckman, who currently, several years ago, established a poetry group entitled Mind Well. And he is currently president of the New Mexico State Poetry Society. Please welcome Zachary Kluckman.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? What a beautiful evening of poetry this has been so far. I apologize that my camera was off earlier. I didn't want to appear rude, but I'm raising my grandbaby now too, so there was a lot of this going on. I have honestly been trying to figure out what to read tonight. You know, it's always hard as you're inspired and moved by the poems before you. So I am going to I think read this one actually. And this is sort of a piece that symbolizes what the pandemic has been for me. It's actually coming out in print in the New Writing Scotland issue here soon. But it is, well, I'll just let it speak for itself. It's called Break in Case of Silence. When fireflies dance from the open wound of your mouth, when you have talked graves free of their bones, dug wasps from their homes, stung truth with the raw tooth, when grief has bitten your hand for feeding it the names of the lost, when you have found a secret garden within the reckless brambles of your heart, where the silence deepens until trees wail by comparison, when you carry fear like a corpse because the smell is more familiar than flowers, when the rain digs songs from the mud, when scars are rubbed for their genies until blood appears under your nails, when your mother takes up magic and learns only one trick, how to open the earth with her body and be swallowed, when your voice is a love note written inside of a kite, an attempt to sweeten the sky, when the string breaks. Have you seen how they dance, fireflies? How they treat the small space inside of jars to the movement of light? How they burn whether their worlds shatter or not? How the lightning must have spoken to their mothers? How their bodies lift from the earth? How the earth fell over her body? The grasshoppers with their bagpipes, the world with its drunken spin, how they stop. How you learned from your mother's tongue, the words of passing, but also the music of laughter, but also the sweet scent of grass from her lungs, her strength. Speak them for the spring, for the passing of light through the trees. Even if the words hang like bruised fruit from your teeth, even if the shadows crawl from the ground into your arms, this is natural. This is the wisdom of bodies, to hold what is dead close to the heart, to break the silence with the only voice you have left. Thank you.
All right, let's everyone unmute and applaud and cheer for one another for a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you, Donald.
Hey,
Thank you, everybody.
Yay, beautiful.
yeah, way to
That's
go.
incredible.
And let's give our blessings and our love and our good wishes to our brother, our poet brother, Amit Dahiyabadshah. I've said that so many times, I know it by heart. Dahiyabadshah. Thank you.
That's okay, Billy. My mom had a hard time with the name as well.
I'm going to put in the chat one more time where you can donate. Please do so generously. It will all get to Amit within a few days of my receiving it, usually within a couple hours of when I receive it. And several people have indicated a desire to read another poem. So if you do, please put your name in the chat. I think we can handle a couple more poems. For those of you who are past your bedtime, we will not hold it against you if you need to leave. But
Billy, can I interrupt for a moment? I think I'd really like to hear from Bernardo.
Bernardo,
Bernardo is reading, and I think that Scott Norman wanted to read as well.
Go ahead, Bernardo.
Thank you, Billy. I reread the email, man. Apparently your email just said that thank you for registering. There was no indication that I was scheduled, so my bad. I didn't mean to bring any bad feelings to this, man, because it's all about a meet, and I'm about healing, you know.
We're ahead of schedule anyway, Bernardo, so don't worry about it.
There are no hard feelings here, Bernardo. Go for it.
Brother. Thank you, brother. I was about to say that my name is Bernardo. I am a poet, sing-song poet from Laurel, Maryland. And I followed the yellow brick road to get here from a friend called Hakim Bellamy through Tortuga to Billy Brown to meet poets I already knew, and Josephine K. Hall and Don Krieger to meet Amit. And it was a very beautiful read, and I'm very impressed. From my understanding, it was about the COVID situation. So I prepared a couple poems. They're short to express that, because I believe that we are going through a natural phenomenon which feels unnatural to us, but it's taking place, and our job is to survive this. So first of all, I began by reaching out. This poem is called The Broadcast. Checking in, this is me. Radio frequency of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, still alive on a planet called Orator in the great state of hope. From the city called Elevation in the county of Elevator, here I broadcast fast concepts, connection of the spirit, trying to affect the darkness of being alone. We cannot touch except through thought, and so we think we're on our own. In this realm, I found my breakthrough. Let me take you to the men. Elevator, elevation, hope, orator, still alive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the frequency. This is me checking in. This next one I wrote in the very beginning. Little did I expect that there would be a resurgence, but I believe that we have to take everything we're dealing with right here, right now, one day at a time, like we take life. We are coronavirus survivors for now. We have not succumbed, been overcome. Grace has allowed another day to face the sun, to put hands to plow, to do the work inserted deep inside of us. We must trust to find the thrust that will bring us through. For Yahweh knows the thing he created us to do. Today is what we have to find a way to laugh, to smile, to cease from worrying and find peace. For we are coronavirus survivors. for now. And I pray everybody keeps surviving. And this last piece is from my chapbook. It was written as an expression of me finding the contrast of darkness to light one night when I was lost on a highway. And it has become a poem that people recognize as a way of saying goodbye. If the sun must set, let me remember it was bright, and hold this recollection deep into the night, and aid me in recalling the way that it gave sight. Reveal to me the truth, the way of this great light. To pause in the reflection, how it rises from the right, and grows in all it shows in reaching to his height. Freely shares the blessings of awareness, growth, and might. If the sun must set, let me remember it was bright. Assist me in remembrance. Sun came forth bringing morn, and beaming down from heaven, touched earth and made it warm. Radiating unto seeds, new life therein was formed. In places where there was no life, this same source brought forth scorn. Sun causes rainbows to come out in mist or after storms. Inspired me, as you can see, that I should write this poem. As I look unto a book called Life, though the page is worn, knowledge firm concerning sunset death rise means reborn. If the sun must set, then please remind me it will rise. If not in this place I see, then on the other side. The story told another way, behold the ocean's tide. An energy stored up in me, teach me to pace my stride. The light placed in the soul of me was not put there to hide. Teach me not to fear, but give instruction using pride. I know by saying I don't know, there's room I might be wise. If the sun must set, then please remind me, it will rise. Thank you all. Amit, thank you for your wonderful words, man. I'm glad to meet you. I'm glad to meet you all.
Likewise. Likewise here.
Yes, same here.
Scott wishes to read. Yes, Scott?
Yes, yes.
And then after that, Kate.
Kate can go before me if you like. Oh, all right, I'll go. These days, everything is so torn apart. If you either seems that you're driven to take one side or the other. And I don't know, but anyway, this is, I'm going to sing this, even though it's a poem, because you brought it up. This is a letter of congratulations to Polly Davies, March 2008, for Julia Utz and for Quinn Brisbane. One, we all live in history in a place called the world. My name is Scott, you don't need to dread, not my voice or messages from this part of the world. It's referred somewhere in the Talmud. If you saved a life, you saved the world. Two, once upon a time, 11 people got arrested near a house. A judge lived in the house. 200 or so people stood between a man and a death chamber. Most of the people went away. 11 chose to confront. Word from council said that we pulled it off. Jim Bevel did it again. New reason for a maverick to be vilified. Talk and hypocrisy. Otherwise, those who didn't confront might be those who ran away. I almost left a worthless life, a muted voice in the jail in the cold. It wouldn't look bad for what we were doing. 3. Once upon a time, I intruded on an evening. You provided information to move beyond corruption into the decades through the world. For a worthless life, a muted voice, I won't apologize that intrusion. We've learned better than that. I'll congratulate you, Miss Polly, for saving the world.
Thank you, Scott. Lovely voice. Kate, are you ready?
Hi, born ready. Still haven't gotten sleep from that last message. Thank you so much, Scott. That was incredible. What an honor. Way to go. Sing in the morning. Peace into place. There beneath my feet is rich and dark soil. Many moons raised the old compost pile, digging deep to reap her moist, wormy worth, filling wheelbarrows, planting new beginnings. Their heritage long ago turned and toiled. A generation has left its earthly place, digging deep into the rank and file, goose-stepped unwittingly for the commandant. There beneath my feet are old musty children's books, meant for merriment, glee, and sleep. Sway learning lessons, dodging banishment as an obedient child, now outspoken, reuniting in truth revealed. There survives a bond of grace between love and hope. May multitudes never cease to turn peace into place. Thank you very much, Amit. Thank you very much, everybody that joined Amit with unified love and hope and healing and peace. I hold your hand, Amit. I hold your hand.
GE, would you like to read?
Yes, thank you so very, very much. I hadn't planned to. I came to listen, but I'd love to, because I love this man. I love his voice. I love his work, and it's meant a lot to me over the last few months since I first heard him back in December on the Cultivating line. This is breathing without exhales. This is unbearable, we say, while doing just that, reading our lips as if the shapes settled like letters, like wax wings on a branch baseline. Nothing is lost from the lines or the photographs. No amount of reading wears them away, lips or no lips, jams or iams, looking so similar in lowercase. The cathedral is upheld, stone humming, ribs vaulting, insinuation and insinuation at the same time. Credo, I believe, and Daddy-o, how meaning interlocks with stones as the birds settle into limestone cornices. Some things inside out as Gothic, outside in as socks, wrong-sided, red-winged blackbird, black-winged redbird, tanagers, the idea mirror is held up to. Alas, alas, I write out love to you in flying words, leaving like water. It settles on my hand, on your hips. I can hardly stand it. I say, while standing it. Thank you.
Thank you, GE. All right, everyone. Once more, unmute and cheer everyone on and cheer on Amit. I need to end this.
And
I have a sweetheart waiting for me in bed.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Blessings on you.
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Amit,
Thank you so much.
Fantastic.